everyone. You look most unusual, spread all the way down the room. But thank you so much for coming tonight. Actually, so a really warm welcome, because we didn't know whether people would come tonight or not. But you know, we just have to get on with it, don't we? So thank you so much for coming this evening after what has been today. So I'm Helen Down, I'm the Chief Executive of the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce, and I'm really pleased to introduce you this evening to June Ranson, who you may know. June has been a board member of the Chamber for many years. I was going to count, but I gave up trying to count how many years you've been supporting the Chamber as board member, June, and as a partner for many years as well. So June is CEO of Woburn International, Licensed Immigration Advisor, and she's the chair. It says chairman. I think you must be the chairwoman, actually.
I don't go with those things, just chair.
Of the New Zealand Association of Migration and Investment. So she set up Woburn International in 1991. So many years of experience working with business owners. June works really closely with government, advocates for business, I would say, every day, on behalf of the migrant community, and really engaged around this whole issue around immigration and closed borders and those sorts of things. So really expert. We're really lucky to have her here in the Hutt Valley, and to be able to share her expertise and to answer your questions. And June is always very outspoken, so don't hesitate to ask her anything. So I'll just want to do a little bit of housekeeping before I hand over to June as well. So also like to welcome Tony McComb here, who is board member of the Chamber and silver partner of McComb Consultancy, and Sarah Wilson, who is also a board member of the Chamber. So thank you for coming this evening. And partners, McComb Consultancy. Actually, you're the only partner that's here this evening, Tony. Thank you. So some housekeeping, of course. I think we just went to alert level 2. We didn't even notice, did we? So that means that we have to make sure we maintain social distancing. We didn't need to before we had drinks, but now we probably do. And there's face masks available, that sort of thing. Bathrooms are through the double doors. If you haven't been here for a while, they are. The ladies is now to the left and the gents is now to the right. And if there's an emergency, we'll drop, cover, hold, and otherwise we'll meet outside in the cold. So yeah, so that's what we're here for this evening. It's all about immigration. It's your opportunity to find out as much as you can. You couldn't ask for a more expert person to have here with us this evening around what the current situation is, what the thinking is in government for the future, and what's likely to happen as we reset as a country around migrants coming into the business community and supporting. This labour shortages issue is just getting worse and worse. Our confidence surveys tell us that every time that we're well back to the same pre-COVID levels, but actually the pain is intense because demand is so much higher now, and so businesses are under so much pressure. I don't need to tell you that, but we all need to get our heads around the immigration situation we're in, because it's not going away or going to get any easier, is it, June? So I'll hand to you.
The norm has gone. Look, thanks, Helen, for that. That's really good. I've got some memory jogger notes here. But I just wanted, for those of you who have seen me in the Chamber, you think of me and see me, you don't see the other parts of the team. We're a big team, and we've been going 30 years. So look, they're really great. And we've got, these are the local people. We've got people all around New Zealand. And we do focus on other aspects than immigration, but immigration is key. And we are helping with the settlement support of migrants, and we also help with the cultural integration. So it just gives you an idea. But the expertise in our team is absolutely fantastic, and I'm fortunate to have two of my very great people with me. There's Sean and there's Mina. And Sean is ex-New Zealand Immigration. He was with them for 10 years, and he was over in London. And when they were shutting London, we kidnapped him and took him to us. And Mina, she's been with me 14 years. We've got long longevity in our team, so that tells me something. And they're really great people. So you can see us all being rather, a lot of frivolity there. Now, I was asked just the other day by the parliamentary journalist, why not this working? not working. It's my fingers probably. But I was asked just the other day by the parliamentary reporter who you always see on TV, and that's Jessica Much Mackay, and she said to me, what's the state of the immigration system and processes at the moment? And as Helen just said, I'm quite straightforward, okay? Say what I mean. I said it's a total mess, and it is. So what I'm trying to do is actually take you on the journey of where we're at, what's going on, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end, okay? So, the changes are huge of what's coming through. And the key policy changes this year, just to give you an insight, up until this point of time, there have been 55. Now, in a normal year, it would be 5. So if you're feeling rather confused, there's why. And it's tough keeping up. So we're going to look at the system, and we're going to be looking at what is the impact on you, the employer, because it's all very well you being fed information that's coming through, but it's having an appreciation of what impact that can have on you and your staff. And I'm going to say right at this point in time, it is very stressful on you, the employers. It is very stressful on your staff. And I think the well-being, what the government is now calling with regard to their processes now, they really need to look more closely at just what they're subjecting people to. It really is bad. Do I go the other way? Sorry, I'm not used to this. Here we go. Right, so look, a lot of people think everything revolves around New Zealand immigration. It doesn't. And what is actually out of this whole COVID situation that has actually come out, New Zealand immigration's role has totally changed. They've become a regulator. So where it all starts is that it's MB. MB are the people who are developing policy. When COVID came along, immigration shut down. They never had any pathway whatsoever. They didn't know the roadmap forward. And I was one of the instigators to bring together the industry to help them with this. And I must admit, at times it did my head in. But we have opened things up. They were banned from communicating. So MB then makes recommendations to the minister, who signs off, and then it's ratified by the cabinet, whereby it's approved. Then it goes back to MB. So MB are writing up everything. There's no practical input into this. It's theory. They have spoken, they've done their research, this is what we're told, but they're not engaging with the industry really to find out what's this going to do to impact. And then of course it gets passed on to immigration, and I must say to you, I feel so sorry for them. I mean, they drive us mad at times. I mean, they lost 50% of their staff, so now they're massively recruiting. You'll probably see the adverts out there. But of course, once again, those staff take a long time to get up to speed, so once again it slows down the system. But this is fact. So the changes, what we're looking at here, the new accreditation system. And it's not to be confused with the existing system, which is the employer accreditation. I mean, wouldn't you have thought they might have had another name? I mean, that just confuses things. But anyway, this is what they called it, the new accreditation system. And one of the things is that employers, you are not going to be able to apply for the existing employer accreditation after the 30th of June.
Until after.
Sorry?
Is that until after?
You can do it up to the 30th of June. This is applying as an employer for a brand new employer accreditation. The benefit why employers went for that was so that they could in fact get their staff on a pathway for residents because they were given a work to residence visa. That's what the beauty of it was. They were also given the benefits of quick processing when they had completed their 2 years to go for residence. That's all gone. Now, so if any employer holds an approval in principle for other types of visas, you must use that by the 1st of July. Okay? So, what's changing? So, from the 1st of November, 6 temporary visas are going to become 1. Now, that sounds great because you're suddenly going to lose all that confusion. And this will be replacing what you may have become familiar with, which has been the Essential Skills Work Visa, the Essential Skills Visa, Approval in Principle. Then you've got the talent, the work to residence that I spoke about before. Then you've got the long-term skills shortage list, work visa, the Silver Fern, and then you've got the Silver Fern Practical Experience Visa. Some of you may never have heard of that before, but anyway, they're doing away with all of that. And they're going to employ someone on an accredited employer work visa, and employer must become accredited first. Now, why are they doing this, you might be thinking? The government has long time been thinking that employers have been exploiting migrants with salaries not coming up to what they should be paid. I mean, we ourselves have come across employers that have got double payrolls. So when the investigative officers from the Department of Labour turn up, they show one payroll, but they've got another one parked elsewhere. We could write a book on the stories of things we've come across. But is this really going to help? That's the question. But it has been all about trying to catch employers and also to protect migrants. So it sounds really good in theory. So who needs to become accredited? Any employer who is wishing to employ a new migrant from the 1st of November, you've got to become accredited. You don't have to worry about those people who come to you and they hold an open work visa because they've got that because they are a partner of what we call a principal applicant. Okay, so the principal applicant could be their husband, and because the husband got the work visa, their partner is entitled to an open work visa. Also, the students, you're not going to have to worry about that. But anybody else, you've got to become accredited. Now, they're going to be having different levels of accreditation.
Will you be able to provide your slides after this?
It's already been recorded. It's already done.
Because people take a lot of notes.
Yeah, there's, where is she?
Yeah, it is on the live stream, but the slides aren't very clear because it's quite dark.
Okay,
But we can, if you're happy, we'll share the slides.
absolutely.
After this.
Okay,
So taking notes.
okay, that's good. Now, what I'm going to say to you here is that I'm going to make a recommendation to you. I recommend that any of you that are in fact employing migrants, you actually check the status of their current work visas. And if they are within 6 months of expiring, I'm going to be saying to you, look at renewing them now. And that's because they're going to get a longer period of time, and also you don't have to be accredited at this point. So just a bit of extra bonus for you. So it's going to be a lot easier to renew them at this point in time under the current system, and so you can do that up to the 1st of October. So the new system of accreditation is putting a lot more responsibility on the employers, very much so. Now, as I said to you, there are going to be 3 different levels. They're going to be having what they call standard, they're going to be having a high level, and then they're going to be having a triangular employer. And I'm going to go into these so you can understand that. So the difference between them. Now this standard accreditation is for those employers who are going to be employing up to 5 people. It's going to be issued for 12 months, but that's what they're looking for. You've got to be totally genuine as an employer, because they're going to check you out. They haven't told us yet specifically what you're going to be getting, but I'm going to make you aware that I was with government officials yesterday. They tell you little bits. It's not immigration, as I said, it's MB and what the minister approves. So it's very much one step at a time, but I've got a fair idea what's coming, and that's what I'm talking to you about. So in looking at you to see if you are a genuine employer, they're going to see that you have been operating in New Zealand, you're registered with an IID number, and you hold a New Zealand business number. You've got to have a very good history of compliance with all the employment laws, because they really are going to be looking at you. So they're looking at your employment agreements, have there ever been any complaints against you, all of that type of thing. And we'll go further into that. The high volume accreditation, that's for businesses who are going to employ 6 or more people. Once again, you've got to meet the standard requirements above. You've also got to meet a minimum pay requirement of 10% above the minimum wage, or be covered by one of the union collective agreements. And of course the minimum wage at this point in time is $20 an hour. These are my memory joggers. Now, the franchise and the labour hire accreditation companies, you can't see through me, can you? Okay. It's for those of you who are with a recruitment company or a labour hire company, and you actually put these people you've recruited on your payroll and you outsource. There's a lot of this that goes on in the construction industry, and the recruiters do this. You've got to meet the standard requirements as previously stated. You can only place migrants providing your business is compliant, and you must have a history of contracting labour out to various companies for the past 12 months, and at least 15% of the workers you place with companies are New Zealanders. This is all about making sure New Zealanders come first. Now, with these processes that we have here, employer check, job check, migrant check, the government's going to be collecting money from employers for each one of those. You also need to be aware that those immigration in trying to collect that money, you've got to remember that they've actually run out of money. They've got a huge debt. And that's why Treasury has given over 173 million. So they've got to come and recover the money from somewhere. So that's what it's all about. So step 1. This step only requires you to hold the accreditation with immigration. The first accreditation is valid for 12 months. And if you really do stack up and you're seen as a really good employer, when you go to renew, you'll be able to get it for 2 years. and they will review you on each occasion. Now, one of the other aspects you should be aware of here is you need to have you should be reviewing your policies inside in your companies. You should be looking if you've got good HR policies, you've got good payroll. Everything needs to be able to be tracked. Okay? Have you had compliance officers come around and see you at all? You need to have that all monitored. And I'll talk to you because not every company is going to get through. And there will be cases where you will not agree with the decision that's made, and you will have the opportunity to get some recourse with this. This was actually discussed yesterday. And that recourse is that if you've got a strong enough argument and you can prove that you actually have been extremely good over a period of years since the offence, they're looking at possibly giving an interim visa. So once again, you're under the spotlight, but you could be getting an interim visa. Now, the job check. You've got to hold the accreditation. The employment has got to be totally acceptable. It's got to meet the employment standards and the market rate, and to prove pay over the 10% of the minimum wage or have a collective agreement. Now, the job check aspects is very much that job description, the job advertisement, has to be written so it's appropriate for a New Zealander. Quite often an employer already has identified who they want, so they put together the job advert and the job description on the person they really want. It's not going to wash, sorry, they're going to catch up with you. You've got to have it so that it's in keeping and fair to the New Zealand market. Now, when they say about, are the New Zealanders available? The recruitment companies, we see a lot of things that come through. They produce the evidence of who applied for that job, and that we have to have a list as to the details about the people who applied and who was interviewed and why they weren't successful. Having the response there that they wanted too much money won't wash. Immigration will say you should be putting your pay rates up. Now, there's a big issue about this because I've just been through this, and it's all about checking out the relativities of the company, and you've got to be able to put an argument out as to why you can't meet that rate. They're not making it easy for you, but it's proving you have been genuine and sincere in looking for a Kiwi. So, no suitable New Zealanders. Are there any sector agreements, skill shortage lists, the labour market checks being required? All to prove that you have been genuine in looking. So if you're going to be paying a lower rate of pay, you've got a lot more research to do to prove there's no Kiwis. Now, the hourly rate being offered currently is $25.50, which is changing to $27 on the 19th of July. Okay, so if you're going to be paying under that rate, you've got to be checking your working income as well with the labour market checks. So you may have identified somebody you actually want, but remember, the job has to be written genuinely so that somebody in the New Zealand market, I mean, we get classic cases where the employer says, oh, they've got to have international experience and specialised interaction in this form of engineering. But the thing is, when you boil it all down, because they look at the qualifications, they're measuring up, well, why is that needed? Why can't another part of that degree be useful for that? They're going to be asking you. So that's why you've got to do your homework and have a provable case. So the migrant check, 1 and 2 must be completed. The employer must request the migrant to apply. So if you have got somebody, you've still got to get that migrant to apply and be able to go through the assessments the same as the other people that do apply. The role offered must be the same as outlined in the job check. It must be suitably qualified either by relevant experience or qualification. You can't go saying this person hasn't had experience on this particular machinery, because there might be a machine that's very similar. Okay? And also, any of your applications and your job descriptions, you've got to have it written so that a lay person can understand, because so often we're all caught up in our own industry jargon, but you see, when you get a lay person looking at it, would they understand it? The fewer opportunities you can get for case officers to start coming back causing questions and things like that, the better. Be one step ahead. Okay, spell it out. Look, I have one employer, and I must admit the job was over my head, and I said, look, I need you to simplify this, and can you put it together? He turned up in our office and he had a file that big. And I said to him, no way, immigration's not even going to look at it. Oh, I'll go in and show them or get them to come out. I said, they won't do that either. Simplify it. And that was a nightmare for them. But that's what they have to do. You can't blind them with science. So it must be suitably qualified either by relevant experience and must meet all the generic immigration requirements such as health, character and being bona fide. Now, one of the things that trip people up is the health and character, of course, but health in particular. A number of people actually don't know they're not healthy. And I always say, because when they're going for a medical, it's one of the best things they could do, because I always think it's better to know than not. And we always want to see the medical, because then we can be forewarned of what issues could be there and what we can do to counter issues if possible. The New Zealand government looks on any health issue as to, is this person going to be a burden to New Zealand? So you need to be aware of that. And of course you won't know that with the Privacy Act. And of course on the character one, well, so many people have got misdemeanours in their past, and I think we've seen it all. And there's ways to actually go through and work things. The sort of things we say, if you go ahead and think something's going to work, we'd never lodge it. I don't believe in lodging any application unless we are confident it's going to go through, because you're wasting a person's time, their money, and also it can put them in a bad space for further immigration to other countries. So you need to be aware of that. So the system for employers to submit the applications to become accredited actually starts on the 26th of September. That's so good, isn't it? But we don't know what they want. But I've given us a date. The new 3-check application process will be introduced on the 1st of November. Immigration are estimating initially that applications will take 1 month for standard employer accreditations, once in flow within a matter of weeks. And the high volume franchise and the triangle situations is going to take a bit longer. I won't hold my breath on that, because we are seeing the amount of time they're taking now for processing, but it is a nice plan, and I hope it does work. So, will there be a pathway to residence? Now, immigration is focusing very much on salary and giving those on higher salaries priority. There's no consideration whatsoever for the backbone of the labour in this country, which is like aged care, hospitality. We're crying out for these people. The government tried to say, well, New Zealanders just wouldn't do the jobs. They just, they're just because the money's not enough. So they upped it. They put the aged care people's salaries up. Didn't make a slight bit of difference. So New Zealanders just will not do that type of work. So this is something we need to be watching and being aware of. So twice the median wage currently is 106,080, and from the 19th of July it's going to be 112,320 for that person to be able to go through for residence application. Unless, of course, they have been fortunate to be with an accredited employer, the existing system, whereby they're still on a work to residence, because that's not being taken away from them. On the basis of that, those people initially were given visas for 30 months, and once they've held that for 2 years, they're eligible to go for residence. But they could well have a long wait. So there are some unknowns. I mean, since we wrote this, I found out the answers to some of the unknowns, but look, it's changing so quickly. So not all the details of the processes have been released, and what we're waiting to hear is how the variation of conditions are going to be working. Look, there's issues with this. We've got lots of migrants who are actually jumping employers, and in doing that, they actually could be detrimental to them. They don't realise. They really are not doing it thinking the whole thing through, because in doing a variation, they have to be going to a job that's very similar to what they're already doing, with better or similar pays, and they just sometimes they just don't get it, and they're jeopardising their futures. And I know, because I'm hearing from employers, that they're leaving employers because they're saying, I'm getting a better pay rate. They're not thinking it through. And of course it's impacting on you, the employers. The fees for each stage of the new process, and I'm talking here the visa application forms and also applying for each of those stages we spoke about, we don't know. But what we do know is they're going to be reviewed, and we will be told that. I have been given an indication this morning that the accreditation for employers is going to be very similar to what you would be paying as an employer for the existing accreditation. We have that yet to be officially released, but I was told that this morning. So you're getting stuff hot from the press here. When will the median wage increase? In July. And what will be the process for already pathway for residents through accreditation or the long-term skills shortage list? It will continue on. But I just don't, I would hate to think that these employees, these migrants, are actually leaving their existing employer without really having thought things through. So, the big question, because I'm hearing all the time, employers, we can't find the people we want. What are we going to do? Now look, one good thing the government has done, they have introduced the Apprenticeship Scheme. But it's going to take these people, I should say reintroduce, they should never have done away with it in the first place. But it's going to take an awfully long time for these people to become highly skilled. So what do you do in the meanwhile? Now, the key points for the border exception. The border's been closed since March 19th, 2020. And the main exemptions for workers are the healthcare workers and the other critical workers. Immigration are receiving 60 applications per week, 40 per week are processed, approvals are 56%. The bar is set high. It's about doing it right, and you've got to do your research with this. So there are specific categories for healthcare workers and people working on specific projects. Most workers are attempting to come through the other critical worker pathway. Look, we at Woburn, we've actually, I've been actually out to speak just recently at a conference because we've had such a high success rate on this. We've had over 90 that we've put through. We had 5 declines. We were able to turn one over and get them to revisit. The people who are actually assessing these, once again, they don't understand the industries. And I'm going to tell you about one that got declined. and it was to do with a person that was working in a private hospital, and they were going to be coming from the UK, and this guy had, the existing person that had been doing the job was retiring. And they just couldn't, they'd been advertising for almost 6 months to get a person. And they had identified a guy in the UK that could do this. Now, one of the specialties of this job was the specialisation on gases. I learned a lot about this. I even went to a hospital to get to understand what's about these gases. But apparently when we go in, we go to the operating theatre and we come out and in the wards, our atmosphere is totally controlled for different areas. It's really fascinating. I love getting involved in your industries. I'm real nosy because I have to know. And it's really cool. But it was about building the case for this. And then I have to explain that to the immigration officer. And about all these wires and all this sort of thing. Now, we had that, it came to us as a declined application. We then took it on and we thought, right, we'll research this, and it came back declined again. Now, the chairman of that hospital felt so strong about this, and so did I, because I thought this would really get through. He took it on himself to go and have this meeting with immigration, and whatever took place in there, he came in and he said, I'm done. He said, I said, look, we can do this. He said, no. He said, I'm going to downsize the number of patients that we're having in the hospital. We're only going to do regular surgery. And he said, it's going to affect our bottom line, but that's what they want, I'm going to do it. And we'll see what happens. And I mean, that's how people get worn down, but it is worth persevering. Now, another case that we had was a person that got declined twice, and I thought, they haven't got this at all. And it was to do with one of the key benefits of this person was that he's going to be involved in boosting agricultural yield, which was going to be used for export. I got it through. And it can be done, but it's a lot of work and it's worth doing, and it's worth doing well. So don't give up hope. But I mean, if you talk to us, we'll tell you if it's possible. We've had some fascinating cases. As I said, we are nosy. We like to know and dig in. And it's really, you know, we'll tell you if it's not going to work. So there are only a limited number of workers getting through as the other critical workers, and they have set that bar high. So the other critical worker is a person who's required that has a unique experience, has technical or specialist skills that are not readily available, or is undertaking a time-critical role. I mean, like the installation of special equipment to help a company grow. That's all acceptable. It could be a project, it could be an event of a major program, or in support of government-to-government agreements, for work that brings significant wider benefit to the region or to the nation. So how does it work? Now, there are these steps to it. So step one, this is done by completing an online expression of interest form. And this is where we ourselves, we have a template, and we know in delving in, we find out from you just where this job fits in. We want to know, if you don't have this person, what happens to your company? So, lots of supporting documents, lots of supporting evidence. When it's in, it takes 2 to 4 weeks to go through. Step 2, if immigration New Zealand is satisfied, they invite you to make an application for the critical purpose visitor visa, and you get work rights. And then you get through this, it's usually sorted out within a month. The visa's valid traditionally for 6 months, and then you can apply, as it says there, if the salary's high enough, you can get a longer term. Your next challenge is getting through MIQ, which is the managed isolation quarantine, and we get involved in doing that. So proving the worker is critical, keep saying the bar is set high. Supporting evidence to back up claims as to how the worker is critical. Look, I'm going to tell you another story. An employer up north. They had identified before COVID came that they needed this key worker. They're not going to mind me telling you who it is either, because of the battle I went through with it. And it was the Whakatane Mill. They've been going through a closure recently. There was also another company called Asalio Care. Asalio Care, they wanted this person to be running their paper mills. And this person had very technical experience on this production line. This is the only producer in New Zealand that produces toilet paper. And the New Zealand government would rather have it imported. Look, we won that battle. This was one of Mina's clients, and we won it. We stuck with it, and we got it through. And I'll tell you what, we've got very happy migrants, and they've got their residents as well now. So it can be done. So you've got to show the fact you have got a real story that you need that person. We even go to the extent of finding out what happens to your company if you can't get that person. Give us your financials as the impact. It's about building a case. Examples of the roles that have been successful: high-level executives, global experience, organisation knowledge, vendor-appointed engineers, required to install major equipment, actors in the key film role. Examples of roles that have not been successful: there have been a person on board a super yacht, world-class jockey. So, immigration reset. Yeah, they've got the opportunity now, and look, it was due for an overhaul. It's been tweaked around and mucked around so much, it really does need re-looking at. But the thing is, I don't want them to be doing it purely on the basis of technical, rather than looking at the practicalities of it. Looking at, is this going to help the economic recovery of New Zealand? That's what it's all about, and this is what I go into battle about. The information has been so vague, the government most likely, they don't know what the reset will include, and changes is likely to make it more and more difficult for the low-skilled workers to get that pathway to residence. There you go. Over to you to ask questions, but I hope you found that useful.
I have a question.
Yep.
I have several actually. The first one is, how did the Department of Immigration get into debt? I don't know, they call me old-fashioned, but you know, you've got a budget and stick to it. They charge a fortune for migrants coming in. They close branches, they lay people off, they brought a new system to automate it, which didn't work because you can't automate a people-focused business. How?
What would you think?
Oh, my guess is incompetence. I don't know, it makes no sense to me.
Look, you think of other things that have gone on in there. I mean, the government seemed as if the minister was awarding a wonderful Christmas present to many migrants at Christmas. When he came out and he gave those 6 months extension, it sounded fantastic. And you are going to be getting a letter from immigration to give you confirmation that your visa has been extended. This is the temporary visas. Didn't quite happen. And the turmoil that is caused because the people didn't get that, employers would ring up and look into the visa site to see the currency of that visa and see they're unlawful. They're unlawful. We had doctors taking people off of their medical sites. We had children being taken out of schools because the students, they said, we can no longer have you here because you don't have the appropriate visa. And what was the answer to that? Immigration said the minister, this shows you the power of communication, the minister made that decision, hadn't spoken to immigration about it, and immigration did not have the IT system to cope with that. And that's what happened. And that's what we're dealing with. We got that fallout all the time. And that's why I say at times we can pull our heads, pull our hair out. But that's the sort of stuff we're dealing with. But It's because there's no consultation, and that's why I get so concerned. There's not sufficient consultation between the likes of MB, the Minister and the industry. I know they have these different pocket industry groups. I mean, we are involved with Business New Zealand, but there is not enough consultation going on.
Because everyone's saying the same thing. I mean, every single organisation, every part of every industry is saying
But
we
it's true.
desperately need people, we desperately need
Yes.
people, we need these families.
Yes?
And but is MB the decision maker then, not Chris Farquhar?
They are the influencers to her, to him. Look, when they, and I said to you right at the very beginning, there was a lack of communication coming out from immigration when they went through that shutdown period. And it was about bringing together the industry to start opening things up to help them develop a pathway. And one of the things that we said, we wanted you to communicate with the industry. That's the immigration industry. So they recognised how important that was. So they got one of their senior people, who's a really good guy in immigration. He came out and he did this big webinar, and it was really awesome. That was the only one he was allowed to do because the PM shut it down. I'll be perfectly honest about it. Didn't want it. So I thought, right, there's got to be another plan here. And I thought, right, we're into education. So let's look at you, immigration, doing education webinars for the industry. Now that worked, and they've continued doing it, which is good. So, as I said, there's a lack of communication. And I feel sorry for immigration. They're not the bad guys that everybody wants to throw the stones at. And I feel sorry because they've got their people going out talking, and I've heard just this week how they're being abused. Because people don't understand that they're not the bad guys. It's what's going on in the likes of MB and the Minister. And you've got a lot of bureaucrats in there. And as I was asked at a conference just recently, if I had a wand and I wanted to make some changes, what would it be? And I said, I would like to see MPs appointed to government that have got both practical experience rather than just technical. I've got a standing ovation. But it's a fact. You've got to understand what's going on. Anybody else?
So Julie, you said that the current visa accreditation process finishes on 30th of June.
That's
and the new process kicks in September, November. What happens in the interim?
Well, let me just explain this. The employer accreditation, the one that's been in existence, is going to be cancelled out. Okay, so they had to have it cut off. We've got some employers that have been firing ahead to get that accreditation because they know the benefits that they can be offering. And immigration have been speeding up the processing of it. But if they get new applications in now, they're going to be ringing up and saying, well, what's your merits? Why are you wanting to do this? And it's really, an employer to do that now would only be doing it if they've got an application to put in now for what they call a talent work to residence visa. Otherwise, it's not worth you doing it. Time doesn't allow it. You haven't got enough time. It's got to go in this week.
So does that mean that if you're in that process, when can they apply for that accreditation?
The new accreditation,
Do they have to wait until November?
November.
So
What do you do between now and then?
so the question therefore is, what do they do in the interim then? So they're screwed, basically. Is that a technical term?
You might have a comment on that.
Yeah, it's a bit of limbo. Like, you won't be able to go, there's no great pathway to residence, but the essential skills won't be cancelled until the 1st of November. So there's a bit of leeway between, but there won't be the pathway to residence that once was.
No, that's what they've done away with.
So it's mainly about the pathway to residence. It's not going to affect, migrants aren't going to be unable to apply for a visa, they just won't have that pathway to residence.
That's what's being lost.
Yeah.
So
So if someone's already in that system.
oh, that's all right.
Oh, they're okay. Right.
Yeah. It's just new ones coming along. See, what's going to actually happen is a lot of people, New Zealand's going to start losing talent, because once the world starts opening up, Australia's going to want to attract them, Canada, and you've got China coming on board. The world's short of skilled people, and New Zealand is giving itself a very bad reputation of the way in which they've been treating migrants. It's actually appalling. And I mean, you've got all those that were there, you've got the split families, and I know some of you here have actually got that situation. Disgusting. I'm in the fight for that one. I don't know whether you know, but some people have come into this country and they came in and found a job, started, and then COVID arrived, and their families are trapped offshore. Some of them haven't seen them for 2 years. And they're highly skilled people. And they won't let them in, but we let the Wiggles in. See the anomaly? You've also got the queue with the skilled migrant. You've got a lot of people that are actually put their applications in for residence. And they've got the expressions of it. They're still allowed to put the expressions of interest in, but it's closed off. So somebody's collecting money here. We don't know where that's going to go. And then you've got those, and I'm talking here, there's 39,000 sitting there waiting. You've got applications that have been sitting in immigration for 2 years. And some of them have actually been selected and they're waiting to be allocated. So those people in that situation, they can't buy a house, they can't get on with their lives, they can't have their kids going to university, and, hot from the press, because your child needs to be under 25 years of age, and if you've got a youngster that's finished school at the age of 18, they have to remain dependent on their family. So what's that kid going to do? Now, I've actually directly had this conversation with Chris Farfoy, the Immigration Minister. Oh, we hadn't actually thought of that, we're actually going to address it. But they hadn't. And he was on TV just the other week, and he was making the announcement that those people could go out and get an essential skills work visa and start work. As soon as they do that, they're out of the immigration application for residence with their parents.
But can I just add to that? So I actually followed that conversation.
Yeah.
And I sort of laughed when
Yeah.
you see they can go and get essential skill visa.
Yeah.
So what company is going to employ an 18-year-old with no experience, no qualifications, and you want to give him essential skill visa?
Yeah, but he's going to miss out on staying on his parents'
Yeah, I
residence
know, but
application.
first of all, the visa won't be approved.
No.
Because you have to prove essential skill.
Yeah.
He ain't got any skills.
You don't have skills when you're 18 years old. So that's
He doesn't understand.
No.
It's very interesting to get on and look at the parliamentary discussions going on and the challenges that are going on, and he really doesn't know. I mean, you saw him stand, most of you may have seen him on the steps when he was being challenged by the migrants. He didn't want to be there, he was so uncomfortable. I thought, Chris Farfoy, he's changed. It's quite sad. It's almost as if he's been weather beaten, because he's actually a really good guy, but something has changed. And I can feel for it. There's a lot of pressure going on. Really is.
June, just as a lighter note, would you like to see Ian Lees Galloway brought back?
No, thank you. He was the previous Immigration Minister.
Coming from the industry of hospitality,
Oh, yes.
yeah, we are not current accredited, and what we do for the majority, which you understand would be migrants, we very much are trying to get housekeepers and cleaners and frontline team, etc., through from migrants, but essential skills visa is what we are currently doing.
Yeah.
Regarding the standard accreditation, it's got the standard 5 migrants, and you pay annually, and then every 2 years. Is that 5 in total, or is that 5 new?
No, 5
every
in
year?
total. You don't have to take them, you can have 1 at a time, all right? You don't take them, you don't need to have 5 all come together at the same time. You're allowed 5 during that first year?
Within 1 year.
Yes.
So when it goes again, and if you keep on the standard, and it's for 2 years, you can employ 5 within the next 2-year period.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't take account of ones that you currently
No.
have or had taken that year.
No, the new
The
ones.
ones that you already have under, like, if they're employed now, they wouldn't be counted.
They're new ones.
To 5 years.
That's my understanding. New ones.
As soon as you employ over 5,
You have to go
you have
for
to
the
go
next
for the
level.
high
But is
accreditation.
it 5 including the people, you have existing migrants who need?
If they're existing as on an essential skills
Essential skills
visa,
visa.
they're not counted.
Because
It's just the,
obviously, we are trying right now to get is all our team
Yeah.
who are only got maybe 6 months or less, or new team members that we're employing, because obviously we're needing this right now, all on essential skills visa, with the hope that we'll get 3 years for them,
yeah.
and then have to deal with it in 3 years.
Yep.
But we will have to go through this process. But let's be honest, the majority of the people that we will be on the 20, 21, 22 if we're lucky, dollars an hour. So we can't necessarily do the 10% additional for that one. It would have to be the standard. But that would be 5 within that year. So even if we've got 10 on essential skills visas currently, that first year would be 5.
It's the new ones you recruit. Yes.
The new ones within that time.
It's your industry that's really being attacked hard.
Unbelievably
Yeah.
so. Being in HR and hospitality is not fun.
And it would be fair to say Kiwis don't want to do it.
I can 100% guarantee that that is the case.
Yeah.
After so many working income seminars, recruitment drives, literally, they're the ones that literally walk away from the jobs.
And as it was sort of talked about, I kind of pop up on the radio and things like this, but really, in New Zealand, that's not seen the same as overseas, that type of job.
Yeah.
Overseas in many countries, it's a true profession.
Yeah.
And that's why when you go into restaurants and you end up with a migrant serving you, you get totally different treatment. Simply because the Kiwis don't see it as a profession, they see it as a fill-in. They should, you know, the pride that comes from a migrant doing that sort of work is incredible. Anybody else?
Yes, I have a question. So with the new visas, I can't remember the name, but going forward the new visas, anybody that's on a new visa need to earn double the medium to be able to qualify for residence. So can they, every 3 years, just renew the visa? Is there a limit on how many visas?
If you've got
can
them
get?
on the right salary, yes.
Yeah, so if you're above 2750,
Yeah.
then they can keep renewing them,
Yeah.
but they can never qualify for residence.
That's right.
I cannot see them attracting many people then.
We know that.
Because what's the point?
Yeah.
Does it,
And that's where you're going to be finding more and more are going to jump employers to try and get themselves.
But even though if you're talking an hour line tradesman, I cannot see a tradesman earn $112,000 a year.
Yeah.
So which means every 3 years you can end up with a new group of people.
Yeah.
If you can find them,
Yeah.
number one. Because I mean, I'm a migrant myself. So for me, I came to New Zealand for a better future, but I want to make it permanently my home. I don't
Yes.
want to live here 3 years and go back. What's
We
the point?
hear your pain. We really do.
Yeah.
It clearly makes us really uncompetitive on the global
Yeah.
you know, we just become a really unattractive place for people from overseas to come to.
There's
Why
a
would
lot
you
of
bother?
images being
From
done.
going
From product experience, I backed up my life back home. I sold everything, I gave my dogs away for a new life, but I cannot see somebody is going to go through that same process for a temporary, stay. I cannot see it happen.
It's very disruptive too to come. I used to work for a Japanese company, and we used to have secondments from Japan. They used to come over for 2 or 4 years. Actually, really disruptive to your
Yeah.
family to then try and go back home and to get young kids back into your
What if you have kids,
culture.
like my native language is Afrikaans, so my kids had to change from Afrikaans to English. And now imagine I have to go back, they will not be able to go to Afrikaans school because they don't speak Afrikaans anymore. You see the disruption there, so.
In terms of financing migrants coming into the country as a company, does the company has to cover all the health and character checks and so forth, so medical things?
No, it comes down to, that's never been the case, and that's not actually being pushed on, but it comes down to what the employer does want to do. because the salary being offered is the gross base notional pay. Don't take into account any of that. So that is something quite separate. Quite often, companies we're dealing with, they quite often either pick up the whole tab or they actually make the migrant pay the government fees, so that they've got some commitment in there.
Just a clarification, you explained that existing applications for permanent residency for skilled workers will carry on the same way. Now, I've been thinking about recruiting a staff member who is in queue. He hasn't been allocated a case officer. His application is with the previous employer. If I hire them now, their application probably will come maybe after November. Do we have to be accredited at that time to support their application?
If you're looking at hiring them, they're already working for another company. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, well, you've got other things there because there's got to be a variation of conditions. And of course, the job has got to be comparable to the job they're coming from.
Yep.
And of course, the pay rate has to be the same or better.
Yep.
So that's the first hurdle. That has to be changed in the application with immigration. Do you know how long it's been in the system?
It's been now, according to him, it's been now in a pool for 1.5 years.
Okay. I mean, they're up to, I think they've reached...
August
August.
2019.
Okay.
Yes, I think...
They haven't got the staff for processing, but you see what they're doing is actually moving the staff around, and they're putting the staff where they're needed. They underestimated the number of new essential school work visas that were going to go through, so they put the staff in there. They've got limited staff numbers, and that's why they're doing this massive recruitment drive. But of course, in doing that, the people haven't got the expertise necessarily.
Might need some migrants.
I mean, we do get some pretty dumb questions coming back from some of these case officers, and you just think, oh my God.
Yes.
So one question that I put forward at a meeting that we had up in Taita was, so we're currently about 40 staff, and we have 12 apprentices. So over 25% apprentices. And my question to them was, so our aim was to upskill New Zealanders so that they can do the jobs.
Yep.
So we don't have to look for migrants. That's what it's about, isn't it?
Yep.
How do we do that when apprenticeship stopped in the late 80s?
I know.
And we've got no training, so we've got unskilled people, training people that don't want to work, you know, and the likes of, so you've got Competence ATNZ, who are meant to be training and supporting the apprentices that are only worried about money. So they get funded for 3 years. If the apprentice isn't keeping up, they kick them off. So how's that being, you know, how do you train people when you don't have the people to train them? That's the question that needs to be asked.
Yes. Very good question, and it has been asked.
So what was the answer?
Pass. Look, I'll tell you what, as I keep saying to you, you can do your head in with some of this.
Yeah.
A lot of them are so much bureaucrats.
The problem is you can see that outcome that they're desiring.
Yeah.
But like you say, you've got to have a pathway to that, and you've
Yes.
got to enable that. If you can't enable it with tradesmen or with people that are skilled, how do you know, we currently run, I think we've got 15 tradesmen, 12 apprentices, and the rest are not skilled, experience, you know. And the problem is when you get to the technical stuff, the experience means nothing.
We had a company out here in the Hutt, and we put up a really good argument because he was able to prove he'd even taken on in refugees, and it was what he had actually done with the refugees, and it was all about building the case, and we got it through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's worth a conversation.
I challenged my brother on a breakfast recently, and just talked about the pressure it's actually putting on staff back here because the skills shortage is so acute and it doesn't solve the shortage now. And he basically bunched the answer off saying it's COVID keeping us safe.
Which is a load of rubbish.
Which is a pretty bogus answer to me here.
Yeah.
And I think I've missed somebody that put their hand up. Sorry.
I've got a two-part question about the rates. So with the high version of the accredited employer, like
plus.
6 plus.
Has to be 10% above the minimum wage, so $22.
Yeah.
What does that get them? Does that get them a 6-month visa, or it doesn't get them a
The expert over here.
If it's below, so
below
2550, a 12-month visa,
12
yes.
months of
Yeah.
that?
So 22 would be a 12-month
Okay.
visa.
And then the next part of it is, if we put in job offer in now for 2550, I know that it's changing to 27 on the 19th of July, and the application doesn't get processed before the 19th of July.
That's
Will
all
we
right.
then have to put it up to 27?
No, it's in the system.
It's in the system?
Yeah, get it in the system.
Get it in the system.
Okay.
Look, I'm going to tell you something else too, because I wasn't very happy when I heard this today. We talked about those people with residence, and they've been in there for a long time, and they haven't been allocated to a case officer. There comes a cut-off point because a person must be 55 years of age, so cut-off is 56, but it's got 55 years. If they have become older by the time their application goes through, so their expression of interest is in, etc., or their children have become older, unfortunately, bye-bye. Pretty tough.
So with the new rules, with the English requirements and all those things, do they still apply?
Yes.
Do they still apply with the salary above 110,000 or whatever that is? Does that wash them out?
Investors are the ones where you can get away with that. If you know any investors, in some of the categories, you don't have to have English language. If you've got 10 million, somebody with 10 million, you don't need to have English language.
This is run at Massey if you want to know.
So even if somebody's paying 110,000 with the new rules coming up in November, or whatever those rules apply, do they still need all the other prerequisites with English requirements and it's not just the pay.
We take one last question and then we'll close up so you can, I'm sure people are going to ask you all several questions as well. Did you have a question?
Yes, regarding to the essential skills visas, because we don't want to register for employing a lot of immigrants. At this stage, I would like to keep it open for the essential skills visa that's valid till November.
Yep.
Do we still need to get accredited for that visa or not? The company? Not sure.
No.
All right.
So you just need to get it in before the change kicks in.
So basically still get the contract to the employee, yes. And that employee can do how I got here. I did it all myself and got over. The company didn't pay for anything, so can I basically run it the same?
As long as it's in before the 1st of November, the end of
The
October.
application is in the system before.
Look, you are in what I would call, what was the word I was going to use? Shark-infested waters. Okay, just be aware of that. Any excuse, bye-bye. I'm not kidding you, I'm not trying to frighten you, it's a fact. Because we see some very strange things. And we argue. She's a great arguer.
You're not bad yourself, June. Thank you so much, June. June came and you walked in my office the other week, didn't you? And you said we need to run a session like this. And you'd obviously just come from Parliament or something, or off a Zoom call with some person from government that would obviously upset you. So we need to run a session like this and get this information out. You know, I'm sure you found it really useful. I mean, we're just lucky to have that level of expertise available. Really pleased to be able to bring that to you. And thank you, June, and thanks, Mina, and thank you as well. So, yeah, and thanks for taking the time to come and find out and be a bit more informed. You know, we might not like some of the messaging we're getting, we might not like some of the rules that are coming along. All you can do is the chain makes the case as many times as we can and gives as much opportunity to businesses to have a voice to government, and you know, we do it every week really in some form. But all you can all do is you know, work together and be informed and learn what the rules are and find the ways to work within them. You know, it's not an environment that's easy. It's an environment that does feel like it's got lots of sharks in it, doesn't it? So we have a business card drawer, don't we?
We do.
And so this is a basket of Hutt Valley made goodies and yummy things. So hopefully you put your card in the... No, you can't have that, Mina.
Mina doesn't count. Try again. Not whatever you're in. There we go.
Sorry, I didn't know that
Dr.
this was for
Ismail.
tonight. Sorry?
Seismic Solutions, there he is.
Enjoy some of the nice things that some of our men...
I'm here.
Fabulous, excellent. So, I'm going to read you what we would normally have said if we went in alert level 2. So, we don't know where this goes, but we have a full program of events that we're running and that are coming up. I think we're running events at least every week at the moment. We're still doing online events as well, like we've live streamed this evening, but we've got a whole lot of events coming up, and we're going to leave them coming up until we see what happens, and if we have to cancel at the last minute, then we will, or postpone or whatever. But please do register for them, because even if we can't run them because alert levels change, at least we know you're interested and that's what you want to see. It's fabulous to get your support. It's lovely to have, it's great to see so many new businesses that are engaging with the Chamber now through our education to employment work. I know like your business, which is excellent. So we've got a woman in business event coming up with keynote Kristen Lundman. So she's the founder of Hatch. So that's a new shares management service, and that's on the 1st of July. So that's actually next week, and we're keen to get more women together. It's the first time we've run a women in business event for about 18 months. So, or maybe 16 months. So please register for that. We have a spotlight on climate change on July 7. We have BNZ Tech Series on July 28, and we have some amazing technology companies speaking that night. We've got one that's working on getting equipment into Mars and back, right here in the Hutt. We've got another one that's working on the electric boat ferry service that will be a major export for this area. And the other one is working in some spheres that I don't know much about, actually, because I just saw it today. So it's going to be a really interesting event, and that's on the 28th of July with Platinum Partner BNZ. And if you're a new member of the Chamber, of course, we can only do our work because of our members. And so we're welcoming all our new members at a private function on the 22nd of July. So if you're a recent member of the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce, please do make sure you've got an invitation to that event. If you haven't, then please email the Chamber and we'll get you an invitation to that. If you are not a member, you are more than welcome to join the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce by filling in about 3 fields online or telling us tonight, and we would love to welcome you at that function as well. We have a couple of workshops available, one on IP and one on resilience. Both are being postponed at this stage, but we'll be putting new dates up for those when things are a little bit clearer on that. So, yeah, can I, before I close, thank all the Chamber members in the room. Thank you for your continued support of us in changing and challenging times. Your small membership fee is what helps us to run events like this every week, and we can't do it otherwise. So, we really appreciate your support as members of the Chamber. And there's one other thing I need to do. I also need to welcome a new partner to the Chamber, don't I, Brendan? So Synthesis Marketing has come on, I think we're announcing it today, as a new silver partner for the Chamber as well. So thank you to Synthesis for that as well. Thank you for coming this evening. Have a good evening, keep safe, and please, stay in touch and get involved in a lot of the programs and services that we provide. Thank you very much, Joan, for your
Thank you, I appreciate it very much. It's always interesting because we